we're going to talk about the Aldelo Express additional devices. These devices would be things that would reside in the network, and they would be things such as the additional rear facing customer media display. That is an iPad that sits on the back of the terminal that faces the customer and has some certain functions that we're going to discuss today. Next up would be the kiosk terminal. This would be a dedicated kiosk that is in a stand or on a table that is away from the counter that allows customers to come in, place their order, either pay at the kiosk or have it recalled for payment at a terminal later on. And then going to talk about the kitchen display system. This is the ability to have the orders displayed on an iPad or monitor using the iPad as the bump bar. So let's get into the Aldelo Express customer media display first. It can be used on, as well as all of these devices we're going to talk about today, all can be used on any of these iPads. iPad mini, Air, Pro, any of those different iPads can be used. All it has to be is the current iOS, whatever that current iOS is. Right now it's 14. So any current iPad with the current iOS can be used. I say that in that way because I want you to realize you can get a used iPad or take an existing iPad that the customer has and use it as long as it is on the current iOS. If you get a very old device, it might not be able to be upgraded to the current version of software. So be careful when you use a used terminal or an other than new terminal that it does have the current iOS and can be upgraded as it moves along, because Aldelo Express software always stays current. So when iOS 15 comes out, we will have already done the development work to work on iOS 15, and we will not be backwards compatible or guaranteed to be backwards compatible. With the customer display is a maximum of one per device. So you can't have two customer displays on one POS terminal. Obviously, they must reside in the same network because we're not connecting them via hardwire. They are connected via the Wi-Fi. They're just considered just to be another device in the network. And we'll show you how you do those numberings in here in a minute. And of course, it is included with the Aldelo Express software. As long as you're using the Aldelo Pay, there's no charge for it. But it is included with Aldelo Express. As you see on this hardware, it would just be another iPad facing the rear toward the customer. It can be any size. It can be the mini. It can be the as large as the Pro. So you can use whatever iPad you wish for that rear facing customer display. It does have the ability to allow the customer to sign on the display. And it also has a suggested tip that's displayed, so that it is a full functioning and interactive display. Very easy to set up. This setup that I'm about to explain is the same setup whether you're using the customer display, the KDS, or the kiosk. They're all done in the same manner. So when you fire up the software on that device, you're going to get a screen that looks like this with a QR code. You literally just scan that QR code on the point of sale device, and the two devices are then linked together. It's just that simple. There's no hard programming to do. There's no device networks to set up. It is literally make sure that the two iPads are on the same network. Then the point of sale iPad uses the camera on the back. It scans that QR code, and the two then are working together. You will enter the device number on the unit. Use a logical numbering scheme. I would do the devices in the 100s for POS terminals, 200s for displays, 300s for KDS, but you use whatever you think is logical. Once you have done that, enter the manager number, and you're then able to access the program screen. Now, I know this is an eye test on this particular screen, but the functions and the setup are very easy to do. You just simply pick from the menu here, and you can choose a lot of different features. The basic color, background colors, the side border colors, and as well as the um, videos and items that are displayed. So the customer display will allow a series of videos, advertising media type videos to be displayed and rotate every few seconds. You set those up in a routine that goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next. So these can be video ads, they can be product ads, they can be um, vendor ads. If you want to have a vendor that gives you a short video about their product, you can actually add that. Whatever the videos they're seeing on the customer display come from the database on that specific iPad. So you would load in the video photos section under the videos, you'd load the photos and the videos that you're going to use on this customer display onto that iPad. And that's the database that is used for this portion of it. It will be full motion video with, it could be graphics, it could be cartoons, it could be whatever you wish. It is actually just a MOV file. You also have the option and ability to put in still photographs. Now these instead of videos, they can be images. These images are displayed on the device during the transaction. So the ones that I just showed previous were for the screensaver when it's not being used. These images display during the actual transaction. So this could be prompting of additional upsells, whether it be a larger drink or a dessert. You can have those images in programmed here, and they display to the customer during the transaction. Obviously, you select how often and then what um, order they will come up in. These images are also stored on the iPad and are programmed from that database. On your display options, you have the choice of the image being on the left or right during the transaction. And the items then would be listed in that gray area. On the bottom, you have the subtotal taxes and total due. Those images do change. You have already programmed them in, you've selected them, you said how often they change, and they will change during the transaction based upon the timer. If they don't want an image, then the picture on the right is without an image, so it will take up the entire size of the iPad. Okay, next up is the kiosk. This actually is one of our older additional modules. This came out before kitchen display, before the customer facing display, and we've got several of these installed. It is the same easy setup. And you scan the QR code. And once you do that, it then it links the kiosk to the above store cloud database. If you're working on a single terminal that you're just going to set up a kiosk only, then you can do that by taking a screenshot and then scanning that QR code on the same iPad. Once you do that, well, here's where you would scan it. This is the actual place on the point of sale iPad that you scan it. It does link the kiosk to the system database. So whatever database you have online that is used at the point of sale devices is also used on the kiosk. This kiosk software is included with the Aldelo Pay processing at no charge. It is considered to be another POS device. So it can be purchased on SaaS at $99 a month. Unlimited number of terminals. When you start programming these devices, you're going to find out that there's literally hundreds and hundreds that are able to be set up in the network. There's really no limit to the number of terminals that you can have. And images that are displayed are the same images that are in the above store database. For Kiosk and Mesa Plus, we are highly suggesting that you have images. It's like an essential part of it. Don't think you're going to get away with just wording. So have the pictures, have the images displayed. Those help sell the product. So what you're looking at here is down the left are the categories, and in the center you have a 4x4 16 item display. Then the customer can scroll up or down to see additional items, but you're going to display 16 at one time. Once you ring that or touch that item, it then goes into the shopping cart, which is a icon on the top right hand side of the screen. There is a pay at the table option. You can have the customer, if you wish, you can put a kiosk, a physical kiosk on each table. And you can have pay at the table if you had an individual PAX device there at the table. You can also do QSR pay option with a similar PAX device. And if you had a kiosk stand, then you could attach the PAX terminal to that stand and allow the customer to self-pay there with a debit, credit card, Apple Pay, Android Pay. Those can be done. And then a cash drawer would be at the counter. So you would have a plastic transaction, electronic transaction at the kiosk terminal, but you have the option of having cash paid at the counter. It's because you can order on the iPad, on the kiosk, and have it recalled at any other terminal. You can also have multiple kiosk devices feeding a single cashier terminal. The system does have force modifiers. We do have images that would go along with the different, in this case, the steaks to show the temperatures of the steaks. But force modifiers are from the cloud database, as well as any of the optional modifiers, what we call advanced. All those come from the database. Generally, you don't have images for modifiers, but for a kiosk, you really do. You really have the pictures of what's going to sell here. It's not with a self-ordering situation, you really need to have the images. So when you touch the item, it's going into the shopping cart on the top right-hand side. Once the customer is ready, they then touch that shopping cart in order to get the order review screen. So that in this case, the customer can manage their order. They can delete items, they can go back and order more, and they can even enter a coupon. They also can add an item note or an entire note for the entire order. Once they're done, they can submit that order. If it's a electronic transaction that you have set up to be paid at the kiosk, they then proceed through the steps of paying for that. Or they're giving an order number and it's gone now to the terminal, cashier terminal, to be recalled and paid there. Then at that point, it just proceed normally. If it's a quick service, they can pay for it. They get their ticket and they go sit down and the food's brought to them. So, all right, next up is the Aldelo KDS kitchen display system. I didn't go through the setup, but it's exactly the same as the other two devices. It's scanning a QR code, enter the device number, and then now a manager number, and you are now into the programming aspects on the iPad, on the KDS. This is by specifically for this KDS. If you have multiple monitors, then you're going to have programming on multiple screens to choose the different options you have, such as the layout. So you have different formats for the different applications depending on the restaurant. Depending on the volume of the restaurant, the style of the restaurant, it's very easy to set up and choose the different screen modifications. Of course, you have different text sizes. You have modifiers that come in color, and then the item notes are they're also displayed in color. There is an alert timer that is programmable that will then start flashing if the order has taken longer than it should. And then you have optional printers, a preview printer, a pickup printer, a label printer. These printers can be an essential part of, not a backup for. That's not why you have them. Even though they could serve as that, their primary function is when you have an order that you've prepared at one station and you bump it, it then appears on the expediter screen. So as the different stations bump the orders off or the items off of their individual screens, it then builds the order on the expediter. Once that expediter has gathered all the items, trayed it, put it on a tray, when they bump it, then it prints so that there's a printed copy to give the food runner to take out. That's the reason you have printers next to KDSs and kitchen displays. This is a screen layout. I say 2-column, 1 row. It's called a 2x1. This would allow you to have, in a situation where you have longer descriptions and longer orders. Then there's a 3x1. This is still a longer order, a lot of items in the order. Primarily, I would look at this as a table service type operation, casual dining, where they have a lot of items. Then there's a 4x1, which is even longer. And you'll notice in the colors that come across there for the notes and what have you. We did look at a 5x1, but it really got to be too small. The fonts were just hard to read. So we settled on a 2, 3, and a 4x1 display. This is a 2x2, 2 columns, 2 rows. Then there's a 3x2 and a 4x2. All these are different prep screen formats that you can choose and make those changes on the fly. If the customer doesn't like a 3x2, you want to change it to a 3x1, you can do that on the fly. The orders are not lost. Now, as you bump an order on this screen, they then move to the top left corner. So when you bump that top left order, then the top row moves to the left, the bottom row moves to the left, with the bottom left cell jumping up to the top right on that screen. So they serpentine is a good way of putting it. There can be orders off screen that are not shown on this display. If you are in a high volume restaurant, that would be a consideration. That's something you have to consider, because the ones that are off the screen, they haven't even started work on because they don't know they're there. There's another way to look at that, and I'll show you that next. But this allows you to see the most current 8 orders. If you bump an order off the screen by mistake and need to recall that, you can pull up the history and recall the orders that have been previously bumped. Basically, what happens is when you bump it, all it does is stop the clock and move it off of the screen. It's still in the system. It can be recalled and it can still be worked on. This is that alternative I was talking about that would show the items that need to be cooked for that prep station. So instead of having each individual order shown with how to prepare that order, the cook at the station would just get how many of each one of those steaks they need, or how many burger patties, how many chicken breasts do they need down, how many fries do they need down. This shows the total quantity and not the individual breakdown. So this is a screen format alternative to the 4x2 only showing 8 orders. This would show every order in the system. This is showing you the recall. The items that are columns that are in red were items or orders that were previously bumped and they've been recalled. So order recall, you can bump the orders to go to the expo. Remember I talked about how you at that point it would print. You can name each KDS. It doesn't have to be KDS 1, 2, and 3. It can be burger, fry, salad, whichever name you want to give it. And it does have alternative languages. Just like the point of sale software has alternative languages, you can have a different language for different KDS screens. English, Spanish, Chinese, all those different ones can be on a different KDS. So I now am going to take questions about any of the products that you've seen here, anything that we've done here, any product questions you would have.